Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions. The mystery of the Dogon tribe's impossible astronomy. How did they know about Sirius B? Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In the 1930s, French anthropologists Marcel Griaule and Germaine Dieterlen spent years living with the Dogon people of Mali. What they recorded astonished the academic world. The Dogon described a companion star to Sirius, a tiny, extraordinarily dense object that orbited the bright star in a 50-year cycle and was invisible to the naked eye. They called it Po Tolo. They said it was the heaviest thing in the universe. They said it had been moving for all of time. The problem: Sirius B is a white dwarf. It is invisible without a telescope. Western astronomy did not confirm its existence until 1862. Griaule published his findings in 1965, and the astronomy was essentially correct. Robert Temple's 1976 book proposed the obvious shocking conclusion that the Dogon had received this information from extraterrestrial visitors. The scientific establishment rejected that explanation, but the alternative explanations they proposed raised almost as many questions. How did the Dogon know about Sirius B? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the wider world of ancient technological anomalies, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Ancient technical knowledge is remarkably vulnerable. It lives in the hands of craftsmen, in the minds of engineers, in the institutional memory of workshops and guilds. When a civilization collapses through invasion, plague, climate change, or internal conflict, that knowledge can vanish within a single generation. There is no guarantee that what is written down will be preserved, and much ancient knowledge was never written down at all. It was transmitted orally, apprentice to master, in a chain that a single catastrophe could permanently sever. This vulnerability helps explain what might otherwise seem impossible, that the ancient world possessed capabilities we did not recover for centuries or millennia. The Romans knew how to make self-healing concrete by mixing volcanic ash with seawater. When the empire fell, the recipe was forgotten. Medieval European builders worked with inferior materials for over 1,000 years before the technique was rediscovered through analysis of surviving Roman structures. The knowledge did not disappear because it was suppressed or hidden. It simply died with the people who held it. Apply this principle more broadly, and the anomalies of the ancient world become less mysterious, not in the sense of being explained, but in the sense of being plausible. If Rome could lose a concrete formula for a millennium, what else might have been lost? What might advanced cultures in earlier epochs have discovered and then lost, leaving only fragmentary traces? A strange artifact here, a suggestive diagram there, that later generations would struggle to interpret. This is the question at the heart of every anomalous discovery from the ancient world. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Dogon tribe's impossible astronomy. How did they know about Sirius B? Is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Dogon people inhabit the Bandiagara escarpment in Mali, West Africa, and are known for sophisticated cosmological traditions communicated through elaborate masked ceremonies and oral knowledge systems restricted to initiated elders. French anthropologists Marcel Griaule and Germaine Dieterlen conducted intensive fieldwork with Dogon elders between 1931 and 1952, eventually recording knowledge that Griaule claimed had been guarded for centuries. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered Griaule and Dieterlen documented Dogon descriptions of a star called Po Tolo, the companion of Sirius, described as small, enormously heavy, and orbiting Sirius in a 50-year cycle. Sirius B, the actual white dwarf companion of Sirius A, has an orbital period of 50.1 years. A white dwarf is indeed extraordinarily dense, roughly the mass of the Sun compressed to the size of Earth, matching the Dogon description of Po Tolo as the heaviest thing in the universe. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. Sirius B was first observed telescopically in 1862 by American astronomer Alvin Clark, though its existence had been inferred mathematically by Friedrich Bessel in 1844 from wobble in Sirius A's proper motion. Sirius B is not visible to the naked eye. Griaule and Dieterlen recorded Dogon knowledge of the star's orbital period, density, and binary relationship with Sirius A, details that would require telescopic observation to establish. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Griaule's 1965 posthumous publication, Le Renard Pale, also claimed Dogon knowledge of Saturn's rings, Jupiter's 4 largest moons, and the rotation of planets on their axes, all requiring optical instruments to observe. This extension of the claims beyond Sirius B significantly raised the evidentiary bar and drew greater scrutiny from astronomers and anthropologists who questioned both the accuracy of the recorded knowledge and Griaule's methodology in eliciting it. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of Robert Temple published The Sirius Mystery in 1976, arguing that the Dogon's astronomical knowledge derived from ancient contact with extraterrestrial beings from the Sirius system who had visited Earth in antiquity. The book was widely read and generated sustained popular interest. Temple's thesis required accepting both the accuracy of Griaule's recordings and the impossibility of any terrestrial explanation, neither of which withstood close examination. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Carl Sagan addressed the Dogon mystery in Broca's Brain in 1979, identifying two key issues: the impossibility of ruling out prior European contact as the source of the astronomical information, and the methodological problems with Griaule's fieldwork. Sagan noted that European astronomical knowledge had been circulating in West Africa since at least the 1920s through missionaries, traders, and colonial educational institutions, all potential vectors for contamination of indigenous knowledge with Western science. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Dogon tribe's impossible astronomy. How did they know about Sirius B? This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Robert Temple's extraterrestrial contact hypothesis, that amphibious beings from Sirius called Namo visited Earth in antiquity and transmitted astronomical knowledge to ancestral Dogon people, which was preserved through centuries of oral tradition, remains the most dramatic explanation and the one that drove popular fascination with the case. It has no credible scientific support and requires multiple extraordinary assumptions with no independent physical evidence. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that Walter Van Beek's contamination hypothesis, that Griaule himself introduced Sirius B knowledge to Dogon informants during decades of fieldwork, and that informants reflected this information back to him in ways that confirmed his expectations, is now the dominant scholarly explanation. Van Beek's 1991 fieldwork found that most Dogon had no knowledge of the Sirius claims, and that only individuals with prolonged Griaule contact could reproduce the specific astronomical details. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that prior European contact through missions, colonial schools, or travelers transmitted Western astronomical knowledge to Dogon communities before or during Griaule's fieldwork. And this knowledge was incorporated into existing Dogon cosmological frameworks in ways that made it appear ancient. French colonial administration was active in Mali from the 1890s, and Catholic and Protestant missions were established in the region by the 1920s, providing a plausible channel for the circulation of astronomical information. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Dogon tribe's impossible astronomy, how did they know about Sirius B, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Van Beek's 1991 fieldwork among the Dogon, published in Current Anthropology, is the most significant piece of counter-evidence in the case. Van Beek interviewed 40 Dogon informants and found that detailed, serious knowledge was absent among the general population. Elders confirmed that Griaule had been deeply interested in the stars during his fieldwork, suggesting that the specifics of the Sirius account may have emerged through the interview dynamic rather than from pre-existing Dogon astronomical tradition. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented French colonial infrastructure was present in Mali well before Griaule's arrival. Catholic missions, French colonial schools, and educated local intermediaries who worked as Griaule's translators and guides had all been exposed to Western scientific knowledge by the time fieldwork began in 1931. The astronomical details attributed to ancient Dogon tradition were all available in French popular science publications of the period, publications that mission-educated Malians could have encountered. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed. Sagan's 1979 analysis in Broca's brain identified a testable prediction. If Dogon knowledge of Sirius B was genuinely ancient, it should include details correct by naked eye observation and incorrect in ways that pre-telescopic knowledge would be. Instead, the Dogon knowledge as recorded by Griaule is precisely accurate in telescopically confirmed ways, a pattern more consistent with recent acquisition from a telescopic source than with ancient independent observation. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Dogon tribe's impossible astronomy. How did they know about Sirius B? Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Van Beek's 1991 fieldwork study remains the most rigorous empirical examination of the Dogon's Sirius claims, and its findings have not been substantially challenged. The extraterrestrial hypothesis has no scientific standing. The genuine Dogon astronomical tradition, based on naked-eye observation of bright stars, lunar cycles, and seasonal patterns, is sophisticated and worthy of study on its own terms, without the Sirius B claims. The case has become a standard teaching example in anthropology of the risks of confirmation bias in fieldwork and the importance of independent verification. Griaule's legacy is complex. He produced important ethnographic work on Dogon culture, while his methodology for the Sirius material is now considered seriously flawed. The mystery, properly understood, is a cautionary tale about how knowledge is made. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Dogon tribe's impossible astronomy. How did they know about Sirius B? From the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Dogon tribe ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.